time in that frustration or that overwhelm or resentment or anger or anything else that used to dominate maybe your life or people that you care about. Because think about it. If we don't manage the ultimate resource of our emotion, where does our life go? We could be brilliant. We can have great ideas, great desires, but we're not going to follow through. We're not going to go start a new business unless we can generate the emotion that gives us drive. We're certainly not going to be in a position where we stay close to the people around us. Have you ever, for example, been in a frustrated state of mind and then snapped at one of your children and had nothing to do with them whatsoever? Felt bad about it maybe afterwards? Or maybe you've been in a place where you misinterpreted someone's intent. You thought they had some secondary approach or gain of doing something with you, and they just really cared. But you're in such an angry state, you kind of filtered it wrong. I don't know if you've ever done that, but I've been guilty of both those things in the past. And I don't want to be guilty of it in the future. And there's a way to create change. Now, I'm assuming, first of all, that you already know 2 of those ways because you've already done those personal power tapes, right? You're not supposed to be watching this video unless you first do those tapes. But just in case you didn't, I'll give you a little review. 2 skills that immediately change the quality of our life by changing our emotions. And by the way, out of our emotions come all of our behaviors. If you're on a roll, if you're in a peak state, if you're feeling passionate, you will follow through. On the other hand, if you're feeling passive and quiet and tired, you're not going to follow through. So the ability to change your state in a moment is the secret to not only peak performance, but a quality life. So how do we do that when we're constantly in a world where we're being interrupted? Like, you may hear some airplanes here. You might have to bear in mind with me. We have to both manage our states here. But the way you do it is 2 ways. And by the way, I'll show you these 2 ways real quick, remind you. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to take you to Hawaii, and I'm going to have you sit in on one of my seminars, and I'm going to teach you a skill that'll show you how to immediately increase your drive to do certain things. For example, there's some things you know you need to do, but you have a hard time getting yourself to follow through. Or maybe there's some things that you want to do too much. Like you want to eat that pizza, you want to have that chocolate, you want to do something that's kind of destructive, and you need to lower the amount of drive, lower the urge to follow through. I'm going to teach you a really valuable urge management tool that's so simple you can use it immediately. But first, let's do a quick recap, okay? Number 1, whether or not we're happy or not, the way we feel determines the way we behave. So, for example, can you remember a time in your life when you're really on a roll, where things were just flowing, where it's like it was effortless, where it's just like you didn't have to think about it, you just thought afterwards, how the heck did I do that? I'm sure you have. Have you also had times in your life, though, when you couldn't remember your own home telephone number, or how to spell the word the, but it felt like you could do nothing right? And what's the difference in performance? You're the same person, you have the same ability or skill, but in one situation you perform brilliantly, the other one kind of brutally. The difference in people's behavior is not their ability in most cases. It's the state that your mind and body is in at that moment in time. So how do we change our state if we're feeling frustrated or we're feeling depressed? Well, first of all, we have to learn and pay attention to what we naturally do when we're in a peak state versus what we naturally do when we're in an unhappy state. And by the way, you can use this to change performance immediately. I've done it with top athletes. Some of you saw in the infomercial Andre Agassi. Now, a whole series of athletes I've done this with where I'll help them discover when they're at their best, they just flow. They don't think about how am I going to hit that ball. I asked Andre when I first met him, I said, listen, have you ever hit a tennis ball perfectly? And he said, well, of course. I said, well, then stop trying to figure out how to change your swing, and let's get you back in that same state of mind where you naturally do this. Let's find out what the triggers were. And the first place we looked is step number 1. To change your emotion, you must change the way you use what we call your physiology. It's a big word, but physiology just means the way you move, the way you breathe, the way you use your facial expression. I got some sun here, I'm squinting. It changes my state. But the way you move affects everything. So, for example, if a person's feeling depressed, do they take on a certain physiology, a certain posture, a certain breathing pattern? I mean, think about it honestly. What's the posture of somebody who's depressed? Where are their shoulders? Come on, tell me the answer. I want you to think of it yourself before I say it. Good. Shoulders are down. Where's their head? Of course, down. What's their breathing like? Full or shallow? Of course, shallow. Facial expression, is it up and tight or slack? We both know it's slack. Now, how come you knew this before I said it? Because you've practiced this stuff before, haven't you? We've all been in that place where we're depressed and we're down. Now, what's interesting is, how do we treat that? What do we do with that? Well, what most people will do is they go take a drug. Or if people are really feeling down in life, they'll go drink some alcohol or maybe smoke a cigarette. Some people do something positive like exercise, which gets you to engage your body in a strong way, which, by the way, immediately changes your state. So what we might do is just try something simple. Might try just breathing differently. Might try standing up differently. For example, try it with something simple. Right now in your chair, one of the challenges I have as you're sitting watching Fiji and some of this material we're sharing is you're not in a seminar. In a seminar, I help you keep yourself in a peak state. Because the state of mind you're in determines how much emotion you're feeling, and the emotion attached to the information is what gets you to follow through. So right now, you're kind of passive. So right now, do me a favor and do you one too. Try this. If you were feeling kind of tired and bored right now, how would you be sitting? Hopefully not how you are right now listening to me. But how would you be sitting if you're bored and tired? Just try it. Come on, it's easy. Bored and tired. What happens to your shoulders? What happens to your body? What happens to your breathing? Bored and tired. A little frustration, that bored, tired, and frustrated. Right? Get that look on your face. Kind of right now, come on, try it. Just see what it's like in your body. See if there's actually a posture that goes with that emotion, a way of breathing, a facial expression. I think you know where it is. And if you went there real quick, that might be a sign you might want to change for the future. Now, in that state of frustration, imagine trying to design your life, trying to change your life. It's not going to happen. So now try this. Sit up in your chair right now. Come on. No one's watching. It's just you in this videotape with me. Come on. Sit up in your chair. Come on. Sit up tall. Sit up like you'd be if you were really feeling unstoppable right now. Has there been a time in your life when you felt like you were on a roll? Like, man, nothing you tried would be stopped, that you'd find a way to turn it around? Sit up in your chair that way. Breathe the way you'd be breathing if right now you felt really good. Put the kind of smile on your face like you feel really excited. Now, I know this sounds third grade. Oh, yeah, what a pump up. Sit up, and that's going to really change my life. But the truth is, if you look at your life and you were to write down all the emotions you experienced in the week, both good and bad, each of those emotions has tied to it a certain way of using your body. And if you keep using your body that way over and over again, you'll keep feeling that way. So make yourself breathe and feel good. Sit up like you are ready to make something happen right now. If you're in a state of certainty you were going to achieve what you wanted, how would you be sitting up? What would be the look on your face if you were totally determined right now? Make a little gesture. What kind of gesture would you make if you felt determined right now? Come on, just try it. And if you make that gesture really strong like you mean it, how does it feel? Just kind of feel what that feels like in your body. In this state of mind, are you likely to do things differently than when you're in that passive state? You and I both know the answer to that question. But the secret is to train yourself to stay in this state so it becomes natural. It's kind of like, how do you build a muscle? I want to build a strong bicep. I may lift weights. And when I lift weights, I don't just exercise. If I want this muscle to grow, I got to condition it by pushing beyond what I'm comfortable with. So if you're just watching me right now and going, who is this idiot telling me to do all this stuff? It's okay, but it won't give you a change. So you got to really exercise it, and you got to do something you're not comfortable with. And if I'm doing 10 curls with a weight, which one of those 10 do you think I want to do the least? Obviously number 10. Which one will give me the most growth? Number 11. Right? When you push beyond your comfort zone, that's when you create a change for yourself. So now, what we're hearing in the background is another airplane. This tends to change our state because it affects state number 2, which I'll wait for it to go by for. The second thing that affects our state is what we focus on. What you and I focus on, moment to moment, radically changes the way we feel. So as that thing goes by, if you focus on the sound of the plane, which would be the natural thing to do, it's going to change your state. But I'll give you a better example. If you're in a position where you want to condition yourself to feel good, you got to control what you consistently focus on and how you consistently use your body. So for example, if you wanted to feel bad right now, I bet you could pull it off. Do you have any memories from your past, some horrible memory that if you thought about it in detail and really focused on it, you'd feel really lousy all over again? You got an experience like that? Some people say, heck, I got zillions of them. I got a menu of experiences. Other people tell me, why go back to my past? My present is crappy enough. Some people are not satisfied with that. They think of things that haven't even happened yet, and they focus on them. Horrible things that haven't even occurred and feel bad about them in advance. You don't want to fall into that trap. So both of these become habits, by the way. People come to me all the time and they say, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, Mr. Robbins. I just feel down all the time. Why do you think I feel so down? Well, part of it is look at their body. Part of it is what do they constantly focus on, how things haven't worked out, how they can't turn it around, and their body's in a lousy place. Pretty obvious. Other people say, I don't know what it is. I feel so up all the time. Why do you think it is I feel so up all the time? And it's pretty obvious. But we forget the fundamentals, don't we? We turn, most of us, we don't like the way we feel, to alcohol again, or cigarettes, or smoking, or sleeping, or we go watch TV to change our focus, to take us off what we're focusing on that makes us feel bad and make us focus on something else that maybe feels okay for the moment. Or you go shopping where you change the way you're moving, you feel pretty good, and you focus on something else. But none of those give you a long-term benefit. In fact, some of them have some negative side effects. So would it be nice to be able to change your state that fast, just by a radical change in the way you use your body, or by a quick change in focus? And by the way, people come to me all the time and say, I don't know what it is, Mr. Robbins, but I'm really angry all the time. They make these horrible looks on their faces. I said, well, maybe we should start with your face, because we get in a habit of using our body in a certain way, and that's it. It takes off and starts to control us, and you want to break out of that. In fact, there's research that's done now with monkeys that I personally don't support, but you should be aware of it. They'll take a monkey, tape down 4 of his fingers. They'll take one finger and they'll manually bend it back and forth, over and over again, manually. After doing this for thousands and thousands of times, an interesting thing occurs. Each time you bend this finger of the monkey, metaphorically, imagine that to do this, the monkey has to make connection in the brain between one nerve cell, a neuron, and another, just as a metaphor. Imagine for this to happen, you have to draw a string of connection between those 2 neurons, those 2 nerve cells in the brain. Well, once you got 1 string, 2 you got 2. Thousands of times, the monkey is now wired to do this. So much so that now you can open the monkey's fingers, and guess what the monkey does for no good reason? Over and over again. You go, so what? I'm not a monkey. What's the point? Well, the point is this. Do you ever go to work the same way each day? Maybe get on the same on-ramp each day? Do you have a kind of a ritual like that? Have you ever had a day where you're actually supposed to go in a different direction, but you're not thinking or on your cellular phone, and what do? You get right on that on-ramp the same way? You're a monkey. What you're doing is you've conditioned yourself so much that it's like hypnosis. You just automatically go into it. Well, can we condition ourselves to feel frustrated over and over again by going into that same physiology, that same set of movements? You bet. Can you condition yourself to feel depressed? You bet. Can you also condition yourself to feel absolutely euphoric, where that is your natural emotional pump? And I'm not talking about just being motivated. I'm talking about really, truly feeling that way day to day, where the natural feeling for you is to be strong and to be focused and to be determined and to be happy. The answer is absolutely. Now, that's one aspect, is physiology. Let's look at focus a little bit. You might say, okay, Tony, I know I've got to focus on what works. Are you saying just be a positive thinker? I don't believe in positive thinking. I don't believe in going to your garden and saying, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds. That's not going to, they'll take your garden. That's not going to help you. You got to be able to focus on how it really is, but not make it worse than it is. You then got to see it how you want it. And then you got to focus on how am I going to make it the way I want it. And I'll tell you how you control your focus. It's not through affirmations, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. I'm really happy, I really am. With that physiology, no matter what you say, you're not going to feel happy. But what it really is coming down to asking yourself better questions. You see, every moment while you're listening to me right now, every moment in your life, you're, quote, thinking. Thinking is nothing but the process of asking and answering questions. Here's the problem. Most of us ask questions unconsciously. And ask and you shall what? Receive. So if you ask lousy questions like, why does this always happen to me? Well, it may not always happen to you, but your brain is like the ultimate computer. If you ask it a question, it's got to come up with an answer. It's got to make one up. So if you say, why does this always happen to me? Your brain goes to, you're a schmuck. Or some people say things like, how come I can never lose weight? Your brain goes, because you're a pig. You ask a lousy question, what are you going to get? A lousy answer. A better question might be, how could I lose weight now and enjoy the process? Because if you say, how can I lose weight now? Your brain will just go on a diet, and you go, I don't want to go through that again. But if you say, how can I lose weight now and enjoy the process? Your focus goes to not only achieving, but enjoying the process. You might say, I've always wanted to ride horses. Maybe I'll take horseback riding lessons. I won't even be thinking about it and also lose weight. You get the idea of what I'm talking about? I'm doing it quickly because in Personal Power we've talked about these, but I want to remind you of them because the questions you ask yourself and the way you move radically changes the way you feel. The way you feel determines what you're going to do. In a frustrated state, you're not going to go out and be totally loving. In a frustrated state, you're not going to go start a business. Remember, it's not our intellect that makes us do these things. We don't marry someone because we made an intellectual list. You marry them because they ran off with your heart and you're passionate to be with this person. You love them. You start a business because you found some drive inside of you. Because it's hard to do those things. But the rewards are in who we become as a person as we live in these states, and they are habits. So you might want to take my little test. You might want to take a few minutes, stop this videotape, and actually write down a list of all the emotions you experience in a week. I mean, both the good and the bad, honestly. Right? What are the terrible feelings? What are the not-so-good feelings that you not feel once in a while, but consistently feel? What are the great ones? And again, test this. And I think what you're going to find is you got probably less than a dozen emotions you experience consistently. And as a result of that, what's happening is at least half of them make you feel like heck. And as a result of that, what's happening? You should feel a smidge cranky when you see this because you're ripping yourself off. There are 3,800 emotions you could feel. So quality life is a life of powerful, positive emotion that you're able to share with the people around you, whether it be your kids or anybody else, because you're feeling it, not because you're pumped up, not because you're trying to be positive or give something to someone else, because you really feel that way. And if you got everything else in the world, you got the money and the homes and the cars, and you got success, and everybody respects you, and you've changed the world, but you're not happy, then you got a John Belushi on your hands. Guy that tons of people love, did what he loved in his life, and he's gone because he didn't make himself feel good. He made everybody else feel good. Or an Elvis Presley. or maybe your neighbor, or maybe you in your past. It certainly was my past. So I really want you to take a look at this. Let me offer you one other little tool, and then I'll take you to Hawaii. It's a simple little thing. So simple. See, I'm a big believer in profound knowledge. Profound knowledge to me is something that is so powerful, but it is so simple. It's something that as soon as you understand it, whether it be a strategy or an idea or a distinction, at the minute you understand it, you can immediately change the quality of your life as well as anybody else's life that you have the privilege to actually touch. So here's a simple idea. I call it incantations. We all know about self-talk. You know, you should talk to yourself right. But you can self-talk yourself like crazy. You're great, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great, and you still feel like heck. So that doesn't do it. We know about affirmations. I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. The difference between an affirmation and what I want to talk to you about is something I call incantations. The literal dictionary definition of incantations is magical words spoken forth. Now, when you speak magical words, they have an impact on you. What's the magic that takes a word into something that actually changes our life? Well, repeating it over and over again is okay, but it's emotion. I mean, think about it. That's what starts wars. That's what makes you fall in love. That's what changes your life is emotion. So we have certain phrases that we say to ourselves a lot, over and over again. But when we say them and add emotion, they literally put us in a form of almost hypnosis. Kind of like incantation. Think about the times of King Arthur and the spells that used to be put on people to turn them from a frog into a prince or vice versa. Well, we use these incantations all the time. People say to me things like, you know, you ask somebody, could you go get me the salt? In their head, they're on the way in going, I don't know where the salt is. I really don't know where it is. It's right over there to the right. I don't know where it is. You keep saying, I just don't know where it is. You open the cupboard, you really look, you keep saying, I don't know, and finally you say, I can't find the salt, amazingly. So a person comes in, they walk right next to you, reach right in front of your face, and they go, what is this? You go, the salt. Have you ever had an experience like this, honestly? Well, the salt was right in front of your face. Did you see it? Yes. How come you didn't perceive it? Because you'd literally given yourself, in psychology, what we call a scotoma, a blind spot. You'd hypnotize yourself into literally not seeing it. Now, we do this with our lives all the time. People say, you know, I just can't do this. I just can't get myself to follow through. I can't get myself to follow through. I just can't. Why do you think I can't get myself to follow through? Well, it might have to do with what you say 20 times a day with all the emotional intensity you can possibly generate that's creating this challenge. You got to notice that. Or, I love chocolate. I just love it so much I can never give it up. Now, teach me how to give it up. Well, nothing's going to change you if you keep giving your brain and your body a direct command through incantations. And by the way, you can use incantations to enhance your life. What if when you were running, you were saying, I'm a lean, mean running machine? Or every day and every way I'm getting better and better. An old affirmation from an old book from years ago that most of us know, but do you use it? See, my whole thing in life is, so much stuff that makes a difference in life is simple. We know it. But the difference in life is knowing doesn't change your life. Doing does. Lots of people know what to do, but they don't do what they know. So what I want to do right now is have you just think about, put yourself in a strong state. Sit up in your chair. Don't be sitting passively anymore in here, because that's the challenge. You're not in my seminar. My seminar, I'd move you. Because the last part of emotion, I should mention, is conditioning. Just like those monkeys, what makes them go is repetition. Here's what they found out when they did this training of their fingers. If they take down the fingers and they move this finger, but while they're doing it, they create a tremendous amount of emotion in the animal. And the way they do that is they stimulate the pleasure center of the brain in this monkey while this is happening. Pleasure, while it's happening. Pleasure, while it's happening. Pretty soon, guess what? It doesn't take thousands of times. A dozen or two times, and the monkey does this constantly. Advertisers know this. How the heck do you think they run all these commercials? Commercials have very little to do with what the product really is. In a beer commercial, do you get reality? Do you get a big guy with a nice beer belly grabbing his buddy by the head, pounding him, going, love you, little buddy? I don't think so. What you get instead is some really sexy, attractive woman or man who's drinking this beer looking wonderful, as if that had anything to do with the beer. See, the reality is it all comes down to attaching emotion to what it is you want. Every advertiser knows that. What you want to learn to do is advertise in your own brain to condition yourself to follow through. And the first way to do that is right now be in an upstate. And by the way, if you see some video of our university, you see people having a great time, look like they're at a rock and roll concert or at a top sporting event, or they're celebrating, it's not about pump up. It's about putting yourself in the state where you will learn and remember. That's what it's really about. So here's the tool I want you to learn. Really simple. We're going to show you a tool I call an urge management tool. It'll show you how to take something, for example, that you don't want to do and get yourself to love doing it. Really love doing it. I'll also show you a tool if there's something you love to do that's not good for you, how to change it. And it's all done with some simple questions. So let's go to Hawaii and let's give you a little idea what it looks like, and then I'll demonstrate it for you with a real person, and I think you'll laugh and hopefully learn as well. I'll see you in a few moments. I want to give you one other little tool, and it's a tool that is so simple again. It's like my idea of profound knowledge is when you take something complex and you figure out how to make it so simple, anybody can do it. You can even use it immediately, it's easy, and it produces a result. Now, I'll tell you what the tool is. It's about how to change the quality of any experience you have in a matter of seconds. Any experience. Lovemaking, a business situation, a meal, exercise, anything. And the tool I'm going to talk to you about is called the quality quantifier. And what it really is about is how to increase the quality of any experience you have. I developed this tool because people have used like the personal power product, for example, around the world and made major changes in their weight. For example, how many of you use that product to lose some weight? Let me see your hands. Now, do people overeat every moment they're alive? Yes or no? They only eat when they're in overeating what? State. When you get in that state, you lose all your consciousness about what to eat, about how to eat, about how much to eat. It's gone because you're in a state of such urgency. And when people are trying to make their life better, they have to be able to do it by being conscious. But what happens when the urgency rises, your consciousness disappears, and all of a sudden you lose all of your faculties. So I started thinking, have I ever been in a state where I felt like I had to eat, but then something broke the pattern, and I forgot about it for a while? How many of you had that experience? You thought you were starved, something broke your pattern, and you lost the urge. It's not that you can't manage your behavior, it's that you're not managing your urges. Because if the moment of the urges you took something to take control of it, you could have changed it all. So in order to do that, I was at a friend's house, and I was thinking, okay, how do I help people manage those urges? There's so many tools. I want to create something so simple anybody can do it. I thought, there's certain levels of urges. They have different levels. Some urges you feel driven. Some urges you feel like no matter what, you're going to have it right now. Like how many of you have ever broken some of your own health rules because you got in such an urge state? Okay? But other times, like you could have that food you think you're normally addicted to. It's sitting there in front of you and you don't even care. Have you had that experience too? And not because you were full, just because you weren't into it. So I said, well, let's quantify that. There's a quality of experience, there's a quality of our state where we follow through, where we follow through a little, where we don't follow through at all, and where literally no one can make us follow through, make us eat it. And everyone has this capability. It's all a matter of manipulating our focus, our perception, the meaning we attach to things. So I was at this friend's house, and they had some banana bread sitting on their coffee table. And I looked at the banana bread, and I asked this lady there, who I know, I said, what's your level of desire for that banana bread right now on a scale from 0 to 10? She looked at it and went, maybe a 4. I said, well, what would it take to make it a 7? She said, what do you mean? I said, to make it where, right now 4, whatever that is, you've now quantified where you are. What would it take to have the desire move up to 7? Not 10, but 7, where you really started to really want it. She said, well, I thought about it being hot. I said, what about 8? She said, if I thought it was hot, and it just come out of like the oven, and I thought about its smells, and I could actually feel the chewiness in my mouth. You can see her start to go into state. Her eyes got like this, start doing the banana. She's looking at the banana bread like this. Like she's going to swoop in for it, right? I said, what would it take it to 10? She goes, if you put chocolate on it. I said, okay, whoa, hold back now. I said, what would it take for you to get it to 2? She said, to realize it's just cold and been sitting there for a while. And you could see her just drop down to it. So it's like a scale, right? I said, okay, what would it take for you to get to -2? And she said, I couldn't do that. I mean, I like it. I said, I know you can't, but if you could do it. Whenever people say they can't do something, say, I know you can't, but if you could, they'll give you the answer. If you're persistent. She goes, I guess if I looked at the grease on the napkin it's sitting on, and I thought about that going in and, then I wouldn't want it at all. You could just see her whole state change. I said, what would it take to make it -5? She said, if I saw all that grease like crumpled together, like coming out my pores, like acne or something. Ugh. I said, what would it take for it to be -10? She goes, oh my God, if I thought it was going to make me sick. She goes, if I thought it would make me sick, I'd throw up. Or, oh my God, I never do it. I said, what would that be? And she started getting this really state. I said, you want it? She goes, no, I don't want it. I said, well, come back here for a second. Imagine it being hot and moist and chewy. And she went, oh, yeah. I imagine chocolate on it. I said, no, come back over here. It's really cold. See, it's cold. See that? And literally, I could just move her up and down the scale of urgency. So I'm watching this, and I'm saying, wow, this is amazing. Being able to shift back and forth. And by the way, people usually, to get to -10, also have fear of loss. It's that they be sick, or they lose their freedom, or it would do something to them that's horrible, some form of pain. Pain, the loss of pain, the fear of loss, that pain, seems to push people through the roof for urgency. Like when you say, oh my God, I haven't eaten in 12 hours. That'll move you up there real fast. I'm starved. At the same time, you think something's going to make you sick, you'll avoid it at all costs. It becomes that other level. So I started saying we all have the resources inside to change where we are on the scale from one place to the other. But then I started using this thing, thinking, wow, I could do this beyond food. Most people in life have experiences where they go out and do something and see how it turns out. How silly. How stupid. So I was here in Hawaii for a program a couple years ago, and a good buddy of mine, we run together. We went out on a run, and it was a really hot day, and we were on the Big Island that year. And the place we ran was like where all the volcanoes have just desolate, made it desolate. There's no trees, there's nothing. And it was really, really hot, and there was no wind. So we went on this run, and we were just pushing it pretty